Hello, and welcome to QuickTale English. Today's story takes place in the dark, where silence can be the loudest sound. The squeaking bed. I woke up suddenly, pulled from a shallow, unsatisfying sleep. The room was profoundly dark. It was that specific, heavy darkness that tells you it is deep in the middle of the night. Perhaps 3 a.m., the hour when everything is supposed to be quiet. I tried to move my arm to check my phone, but my arm felt like stone. My entire body was immobile. I realized, with a rising sense of panic, that I was experiencing sleep paralysis again. My mind was awake, trapped inside a useless, heavy shell. I tried to fight it. I focused all my energy on wiggling a finger, forcing my toes to curl or just opening my mouth to gasp for air. Nothing happened. The only things that functioned were my eyes, fixed straight ahead, and my ears, which were now desperately straining to hear anything over the sudden, pounding rhythm of my own heart. The silence of the apartment was suffocating. I concentrated on breathing, slow, shallow breaths, trying to remain calm. I knew this state was temporary. It always ended. Then, the silence broke. The sound was small at first, but intensely real. A slow, heavy creak. Ear. Oh. It was the sound of the springs in my old wooden bed frame flexing under pressure. It was the sound my bed always made when I turned over or when I sat up quickly. But I hadn't moved. I couldn't move. My body was still locked in its state of total paralysis. I strained my eyes, trying to pierce the darkness. I thought, maybe I did move a little. Maybe I twitched my leg. I focused intensely on every muscle, confirming they were all as solid and heavy as concrete. No, I had not moved, not even slightly. Ew. The sound came again, louder this time. It was closer to the foot of the bed, near my feet. The rhythmic pressure suggested a weight was shifting slowly and deliberately. This wasn't a sudden settling of wood or a change in temperature. This was a movement happening on the mattress. A familiar proverb echoed suddenly in my mind. They say the bed squeaks when someone moves in it. I wanted to shout the second part of the proverb, but mine is squeaking, although I haven't been able to move for 15 minutes. But my voice was as paralyzed as my limbs. I estimated that 10 minutes had passed since I first awoke, feeling the heavy dread of paralysis. Now 5 minutes more had passed, with this terrifying, unexplained sound. 15 minutes of being completely helpless while my own bed suggested that something heavy was shifting on its surface. The fear was different now. It was no longer the simple fear of being trapped inside myself. It was the intense terror of knowing I was no longer alone in the dark. The squeaking continued, a slow, methodical march up the side of the mattress. Eon, Eon, Eon. The sound was heavy, slow, and intensely close now. It was moving along the side of my body, just inches from my right ear. The wood groaned under the slow transfer of weight. I could almost feel the depression in the mattress beside me, the displacement of air, the subtle change in temperature as something non-physical occupied the space next to my shoulder. My heart was now beating so fast and hard that my chest ached. I desperately wished for the paralysis to end, but it held me fast, making me a perfect, silent audience. I forced my eyes wide open, trying to find some visual anchor, some shadow or shape in the darkness that could explain the sound. The room offered nothing but solid black, yet the pressure felt undeniable. It was a heavy presence leaning in. The squeaking stopped. The sudden return to absolute silence was far worse than the sound. The silence was not empty. It was thick, expectant, and profound. I felt the absolute, unwavering certainty that whatever had been moving was now right beside my head. It was waiting. I felt a coldness radiate from the space where the presence was, a coldness that pressed against my ear. Then I heard it. It was incredibly faint, a dry, raspy sound, like old paper being rubbed together. It sounded like a single, slow breath, or a quiet whisper right next to my ear. I couldn't understand any words. It was simply the sound of breath or movement, close enough to feel the air shift. The panic reached its absolute maximum. I thought my mind would snap. I focused all the remaining energy of my conscious thought on one simple phrase: move. Just move one finger. Suddenly, it was over. The paralysis broke. It didn't fade gently. It snapped like a wire. I gasped, a huge, painful breath that sounded ridiculously loud in the small room. My arm shot out, my fingers scrambling against the sheets. I scrambled backward, falling off the far side of the bed onto the cold, hard floor. I lay there for a moment, shaking, feeling the enormous relief of being able to move, to breathe, to control my body again. I grabbed my phone from the bedside table, and the time read 3:22 a.m. I realized the entire event, which had felt like an hour-long ordeal, had lasted barely 20 minutes. The silence in the room was now real and empty. My bed, the source of the terror, sat still and silent in the dark. I stood up, feeling the cold air on my skin, and looked at the mattress. There was nothing there, just the slight depression where my own body had rested. I don't know if the sound was caused by my own racing thoughts, a symptom of the sleep paralysis amplified by fear, or if that proverb was wrong. I don't know what was moving the springs of my bed when I lay completely still. I only know that I spent the rest of the night sitting on the sofa, listening to the silence, praying that the only sound I would hear again was the sound of the morning traffic outside. Sometimes, the most terrifying thing is the heavy sound of something that isn't supposed to be there. Thank you for joining QuickTale English. Subscribe for more unsettling mysteries and continue practicing your B1 English. See you next time.